at some point, your mindset has to change and has to switch over to Bitcoin and Satoshis and valuing everything that way.
Once you make that mind shift and see Bitcoin as a unit of account, it's mind-blowing what it does to your brain.
Bitcoin will be the only way to communicate value.
Motivation to get more Bitcoin is so high. Can you remember your first ever actual Bitcoin on-chain transaction? Can you share a story of that? Is that still in your mind?
Oh boy! Wow, my goodness gracious! I was not prepared for this. Yeah, no, I can't say specifically what it was. Man, it was, well, actually, now that I say that, let me go back. It's coming back to me. I think it was 2018. I want to, maybe the end of 2017, 2018. I bought a little bit of Bitcoin because I heard of this shitcoin. Can I,
Of course.
am I allowed to cuss on this? All right.
Yes.
Called Ripple and XRP. And so I was really, really, new and fresh back then and didn't know anything. And, I managed to get myself a Kraken account. And through them, I bought Bitcoin, which I then sold or transferred into Ripple. And it was probably, I didn't do much with it. It sat there and I kind of forgot about it and didn't really come back to Bitcoin even until about early 2020. Before I finally kind of circled back to, I think the price was pumping around that time or starting to, there certainly was more news around Bitcoin at that time. And so I started looking into it again at that time and kind of got back into a little bit of altcoin land, shitcoin land with just somebody that I happened to catch on YouTube and on Clubhouse. That quickly turned into a, getting wrecked, getting completely wiped out of my account. And I went, holy crap, how did that happen? And then, then I was like, cause this Bitcoin thing was like, it made sense to me. And so I had to, kind of re-engage myself and start really digging into Bitcoin at that time. And that was late 2020, where I finally decided, okay, I get this Bitcoin thing. The rest of this crap, I don't really understand. And just full-fledged went all in on Bitcoin at that point. So.
Yeah, I think Grab describes it the best way. It's like I also heard. I think one of the best descriptions for altcoins is it is a test net for Bitcoin. There can be a lot of things happening. You can try stuff out, and we know. Like if it's a long term in the altcoin market, it might be interesting to see if we can have this technology also on layer 2 or 3 on top of Bitcoin and implement it somehow, which is amazing to have some test net. So I was really toxic 2 years ago against those altcoins, but right now I'm like, it's good. They should be there. People should get people should get testnet in there, and if because the information is out there. If you really want to do the information, you really want to dig deep, you will know that Bitcoin is the only choice. And if you don't do a good job in doing your homework, you will lose money. And That's a good thing. That's like Darwin. That's like the free market. It's okay if people get wrecked. I try my best and get the word out, and I'm Bitcoin only. I will never promote anything else on here. But yeah, if people don't do the homework, they deserve to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100% there. It really it's a process, and I do think it all benefits Bitcoin. It just, it spreads the word, and how does the saying go? Something about bad marketing. There's no such thing as like bad press, kind of a thing. So
it's all good for Bitcoin. Before we get into property management in Bitcoin, I have one last question. How did you view the last 1-2 years in Bitcoin change? I think Bitcoiners have a lot of things that they are learning, and at least for me, I'm now over 4 years in Bitcoin, really digging deep into the informations, and my view of Bitcoin developed a lot every year, and I'm wondering when this will stop. if there's a final key on Bitcoin, but I think there's always something new to learn. What was the biggest learnings for you the last 1-2 years?
Oh man, that's a question that could take the rest of the show probably.
It's okay.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. Bitcoin is it's the proverbial rabbit hole that just keeps getting deeper and deeper. Every time you seem to dig another inch into it, you find the next inch that you go, oh, look at that. Or, the squirrel kind of chasing the nut. I mean, it's like every time you turn around, there's something else to learn. There's another layer being built on top. There's another use case that people are talking about. There's the whole community, kind of shifts from, certain phases, I guess, and is kind of going through. I guess I shouldn't be speaking for the whole community. But, it just seems like large portions of the community will talk about, how Bitcoin will help be more secure going forward, or how, layer 2 will make it more affordable for people, or how now there's a lot of talk about how in the future people won't be able to transact or afford to transact on layer 1 due to the high fee kind of situation that there may be, that people are predicting or forecasting. And, I'm just kind of a dummy. I don't know for sure how all of that is going to play out. Some of it certainly makes sense to me. It certainly makes sense that, given the small number or the scarcity of Bitcoin, that are going to be out, 21 million, and just divided by our population right now, that's not a lot of Bitcoin out there for everybody to have. And so it does kind of make sense to me that there will be some slowing down of the network, or some increased speed to kind of minimize the smaller transactions that are occurring. It just, oh boy. I'm just trying to think here about what other kind of views have shifted for me. I guess when I first was kind of digging in and learning more about Bitcoin, I kind of was viewing it simply from the monetary standpoint, from the value, from the fiat value world, right? And I think that's a shift that people go through when you start going, oh, hey, fiat dollars or fiat pounds or fiat whatever, you can't always be valuing Bitcoin in those terms. You gotta, I think Jeff Booth mentions, you're modeling or you're viewing the system from within the system, right? From within the fiat system. And at some point, your mindset has to change and has to switch over to Bitcoin and Satoshis and valuing everything that way. That actually is a good kind of segue into property management land a little bit. I kind of this morning when I got into my office here, I was sitting down and my wife and I have purchased 2 small apartment buildings. And one of them we purchased at the end of 2016, in December of 2016. And I just was looking at the Bitcoin price at that time. And, it was about $1,000 a coin right then. And the building that we purchased, was basically 300 Bitcoin at that point in time. And today, the value of that building, so it was about $300,000. The value of that building is now worth about $550,000 in fiat terms. And in Bitcoin terms, it's like 8 Bitcoin, 9 Bitcoin, something like that. And it's just seeing that on paper just kind of makes me go, man, I should have been buying Bitcoin right from the get-go. It starts me thinking about just businesses in general and how so many of us in the Bitcoin world right now even are, I think, still falling into that fiat mindset of valuing their business in fiat terms, even though they may be completely utilizing Bitcoin. It seems like there's still a big draw, or at least a tendency to value your business in fiat terms. And I think that's, I don't want to say a problem per se, but I think that it is not a long-term viable business model to run under. I think we really have to do a good job. And I'm sure there's companies out there. Again, I'm 4 years into the space, fairly new, haven't dealt with a lot of companies that are Bitcoin only companies, or even talked to a lot of venture capitalists or investors or anything like that at this point. And so my hope is that there are some companies out there that are doing things in a different business model than what would have been in the past. But it does seem to me like there are there's a lot of tendency to just go back to that way of thinking. So, while I'm on that, if I can, I crunched one more number, and I thought about one of my tenants at one of our properties is paying rent in Bitcoin currently. And, back in 2017, their rent would have been about $800 a month in US dollar terms, which is about 0.8 Bitcoin a month at that point. Right. So had I been collecting rent from them in Bitcoin at that point, they'd have been paying me almost 10 Bitcoin a year, 9.6 Bitcoin a year for rent, just for one apartment. And remember, go back, my building is now worth 8 Bitcoin total, right? So in 1 year, I would have collected enough Bitcoin to offset what my building is worth at this point in time. And now today, their rent has gone up to about $1,200 a month for that same apartment. And they're now paying me 0.015 Bitcoin a month, approximately. And so, over the course of the year, I'm collecting like 0.2 of a Bitcoin. It just is, when I looked at those numbers this morning, I went, holy crap, I should have been doing this a long time ago. And I can, I'm trying to project out forward and going, what is my building really in 4 years or in the next 7 years going to be worth, 1 Bitcoin, and my rent is going to be 10,000 Satoshis or 100,000 Satoshis a month. I don't know. I'm, it's on that path. And to me, that just is, it's amazing. And if people in the business world and in the property management world in particular, hear this and see this, I hope that they listen and they at least give it some thought, because, that would have been just one of my apartments out of the 4 apartments in that building. And, to think that I could have today paid off that mortgage if I wanted to, with the value of the Bitcoin that they would have paid 7 years ago for 1 year. It's just kind of mind blowing.
Amazing. It's like, once you make that mind shift and see Bitcoin as a unit of account and really do that, it's mind blowing what it does to your brain. Like, you are really cautious to spend. And all of a sudden, you really want to earn more money. I don't know if you had the same experience, but ever since I'm on a Bitcoin standard, I mean, for me, it's kind of, I'm also young, because maybe there's this shift going anyways, because I'm just 25. But ever since I save in Bitcoin, this motivation to get more Bitcoin is so high. It's like, I'm trying to figure out how to maximize my Bitcoin stack in some way, shape, or form. And my view is not, I want to make a quick buck. I want to make the buck as big as possible, but long term. Like, I want to build something big. And that's the mind shift. For me, I cannot say 100% it's because of Bitcoin, but it has 100% something to do with it, because I'm young and I'm developing and got also a lot of experience in other areas which are not contributed to Bitcoin. But was also interesting, and you touched on a little bit, with Bitcoin only companies. I am in contact with a lot of companies, and of course, Bitcoin only companies are purchasing for the balance sheets Bitcoin. And even that alone will catapult those companies on a higher level, like on a way higher level long term, because they will buy Bitcoin. Bitcoin will be more worth, their balance sheet will be more worth, they can have more capital to deploy and have more projects. So this will be this snowball effect of Bitcoin adoption. We are now at the stage where the snowball is really small, and we're just coming closer where the snowball slowly gets running, and this exponential curve, what we will see the next 10 years, will be dramatically faster and more offensive and aggressive than most people think. I think, but that's just my opinion here. You will also speak, and you probably teased a lot of it right now. You will also speak at an event soon. I think this podcast will come out when you already spoke at that event.
Probably, yeah.
What will you speak about? You Bitcoin and property management, or what?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, kind of. Well, so it's the Institute of Real Estate Management. It's a worldwide organization that I am a member of in my position. I'm a certified property manager through them, and the webinar will be basically hopefully well attended. And I'll be speaking to others in the property management field, and hopefully some owners out there to discuss how they need to or should be considering bringing Bitcoin onto their balance sheets. And, kind of going through the process almost similar to how I am currently. I have not yet managed to get all of my residents personally paying their rent in Bitcoin. And I'll speak to kind of the incentive structure that I've got set up for that to hopefully encourage people to pay that way. But on April 18th, I'll be speaking at a live on their live webinar, and then it'll be recorded for later viewing as well.
Amazing. What incentive structure, if you can talk about that, are you planning? Is like a discount in Bitcoin or some
absolutely.
Features?
So I'm kind of crazy, and I've just thinking about Bitcoin and thinking about the future of Bitcoin and where it's going. One of my worries, and I listened to a lot of Jeff Booth's talks, and so I think, and read his book. And I think the idea kind of stemmed from some of his talks in particular, where Bitcoin has to stay decentralized, right? And secure. And as long as that happens, then I don't know that there is any stopping Bitcoin. I mean, it is just going to continue to grow and continue to consume all of the store of value around the world. But when I was thinking about that, it was back in, I don't know, August, September, October of last year. And one of the things I was thinking about was, and I was hearing a lot about from Bitcoiners was, oh, you got to just stack as much as you can. Stack, never sell. Everybody was just hodling forever. And that got me worried a little bit about this whole idea of decentralization and getting Bitcoin into the most hands we possibly can. And so, I haven't talked to a whole lot of people about this idea, this concept yet. But hopefully it'll start to catch on a little bit. But when I'm again looking at business models and how people set up businesses and offer, a lot of the companies that I was hearing, Bitcoin companies were, they were offering a discount if you paid in a fiat discount if you paid in Bitcoin, right? So if their program or their whatever, their hat was $20, if you paid in Bitcoin, you got it for $18. Or, the other way to look at that was they're upcharging for fiat, right? So if your hat's $20 in Bitcoin, it's $22 if you're going to pay me in fiat terms. And that struck me as a incentive model that's based on fiat business models. And it doesn't to me do enough to incentivize people to pay with Bitcoin. And so I thought about it, and what I offer my residents now is if they pay me in Bitcoin, and this is another business idea I have on top of that, is developing an app to automate this and make it trustless. But for right now, they're paying me in Bitcoin. I lock that Bitcoin up for them and give them a 50-50 split of price appreciation of that paid Bitcoin for up to 6 months after they pay it to me. And so, for me, like I said, one of my residents is paying me in Bitcoin right now. And let's just say their rent is $1,000 a month. They paid me back in November $1,000 or approximately. That Bitcoin today is valued at almost $2,000 or right around $2,000. So at any point during this 6-month period, they can come to me and say, hey, I want to lock in that price appreciation. And so if they called me up today, it would be about, $1,000 of total appreciation of that Bitcoin they paid. 50% of that is theirs. So they're going to get a 50% or $500 rent credit from me, or in an app world, it would just be a return of the Bitcoin. And so I've reached out to, I guess I don't want to, probably shouldn't be name dropping people, but I'm trying to reach out to some people in the app development world to try and work with some people on the CTV, I think is another layer of Bitcoin. I should have taken some better notes as well before this podcast here. Sorry. But it is to see if we can develop an app that will automate this process and really basically enter into a smart contract with every resident as they pay over an app. They can then look at that app anytime they want during the time period that we agree upon when we transact, and verify that the Bitcoin is there. And then at any time they want on their time frame, they can hit a button to basically get a refund or a return of a portion of that Bitcoin that they paid, equal to whatever the percentage of the price appreciation is. So I don't know if I'm doing a good job explaining that, but
I think it's a really interesting idea, especially for the ones paying, like they're paying the price they would have paid anyways, and they have the chance to basically make the thing back if Bitcoin all of a sudden has a high price appreciation in that 6 months. I mean, doubling in 6 months, it would be like in a bull market, but still there's the chance to do that. What I'm asking myself now is, what are you getting out of that? Because you could also just like take the fiat money and turn it into Bitcoin and lock the full 100% of appreciation. Is this just a mission driven stuff where you want to orange pill people, or is there anything other than that?
Nope. It is simply to try and create more users on the network. So so that is selfish. I mean, I want to see the value of the Bitcoin that I have stacked go up. And the only way that I can help that is by driving more people to use Bitcoin and to learn about Bitcoin. And, in this instance, if my resident now, next month can pay only $500 for their rent, hopefully they are going to use that $500 in savings to buy Bitcoin and stack it themselves and benefit that way. I mean, they may use it for other bills as well, whatever the fiat bills that they have. But my hope would be that they see the value of buying Bitcoin, and even once their rent is so much lower and they're saving that fiat value, they will see the benefit of just buying the Bitcoin themselves, and then they will get to enjoy that for the future, or eventually there may be months that they don't pay me anything because of the increased value or the increased price of Bitcoin. And in those instances, again, if they can stack for themselves that money that they're saving, I'm making that their housing is becoming more affordable, and the value of the Bitcoin that I hold is continuing to go up. So it seems to me like it is a win-win situation. And I like to, I certainly, again, it's that getting out of that fiat mindset, I think, and that getting into the Bitcoin mindset of running, if the world is running on Bitcoin, there isn't a need for me to collect as much fiat as I can from people and stack it into Bitcoin. There is more of a need, and I think it's more important that more people are learning about Bitcoin and how they can benefit from it. And this seems like a better incentive to me than just giving them a 10% discount on their rent if they pay me in Bitcoin. That's a one-time thing or something, and it doesn't teach them really about the benefits.
Amazing. I think when this is up and running and live, and you have some like first half year data, we definitely have to have you back on the podcast and report from all those amazing data what you
Yeah,
collected.
absolutely. I'd be happy to come back on and talk about it for sure.
Yeah.
I think this month, before the end of this month, they, this is their 6-month period, and so at least one of those residents will be recognizing some of that value. So
that's really cool. How do you see actually the whole real estate market when you look on a broader scale developing on a Bitcoin standard? Like when we imagine this future where there's a Bitcoin standard, how do you see the property market and the real estate market?
Yeah, so good question. I see things going one of two ways. I can see a giant market crash and chaos and lots of people getting wiped out and the world kind of falling into a chaotic recession, global recession, so to speak, for, a number of years, maybe permanently, as we transition onto a Bitcoin standard. Or I hopefully, and this is the world that I want to see, is we transition to a Bitcoin standard in a more steady kind of exponential growth rate that allows us to do this, demonetizing the real estate store of value, all other global assets and commodities in a more predictable manner, so that people don't just get completely wiped out right away. And that's, again, that's kind of where I was going with this incentive model too. This idea of driving more people to Bitcoin through this different incentive model. I think, if I was a resident living somewhere, I would look, I own my house, not completely, so I'm still making payments to my bank. But I would love it if, like, my bank would do the exact same thing for me that I'm doing for my residents. And all they would have to do is say, hey, let's do it. Pay me in Bitcoin. And for me as a business owner, I have to manage my fiat cash in order to pay the bank back for my apartment building, just like I have to as a person for my household, right? My bank loan is in fiat and is valued in US dollar terms. And so as long as I can manage that cash flow, I don't see why we can't make this transition to Bitcoin only in a much more methodical fashion that doesn't burn the entire economy to the ground and just flip everybody out and, go launch us into chaos. And that's what needs to happen. And other business owners need to take that mindset, I think, and really try and work towards that. Like I said at the beginning, my building is now valued at 8 Bitcoin, right? That's going to continue to drop as I continue to stack Bitcoin. Eventually, at some point, I will have collected enough Bitcoin from my residents that offsets the value of my building in Bitcoin terms. And I no longer have any reason to sell that building in the future, right? I have no reason to try and get at that US dollar value just to go buy Bitcoin with it when I can build this business that is going to continue to collect Bitcoin into perpetuity. So I think that more owners, more business owners need to take that perspective and look at the long-term value of whatever business they're providing, whatever value they're providing to people. So
21 Bitcoin is Bitcoin only from day one, and they teach and preach self-custody. This is my go-to exchange when someone asks me, oh, where can I buy my Bitcoin from? This is the easiest entry for Bitcoiners. And if you want lower fees, plus at the same time support this podcast, use code Robin and click the link in the description. You want everybody to switch to a new system. Like it's with a sinking ship. Like if the Titanic is sinking, you want it to sink in a slow and steady manner so people can get on the lifeboats. And if it sinks too fast, too many people drown. And this could happen. And you can say, oh, have fun staying poor, and sorry you did not get the message. But we can also help them in a better way. And I'm a fan of the latter one, where we are helping people and orange pilling people and saying, hey, this is the way, this is the future. I don't orange pill you to get my Bitcoin up in value, because this is nonsense that I can move the Bitcoin price. I want to help you. And this is, I think, the way we have to look at it.
Yep, absolutely.
And for me, then also the question, especially when we talk about real estate and the housing market, do you see Bitcoin solving homelessness in the long run if all the prices are falling to utility value?
I don't, I think there are always going to be people that are choosing to opt out of any system. And I think Bitcoin is just another system, albeit a, much more perfect system than any we have had previously. I think there will still be a certain subset of people that just aren't interested in that. Maybe I'm wrong, I would like to think I'm wrong, but I definitely think it makes housing much more affordable in the future. Like you said, Bitcoin is going to demonetize the store of value that we've held in the real estate world and everything. And as those products fall to the utility value. Yeah. Yep. The people that I like to think the people that are in a position like I hope to be are going to be, I'm going to be able to continue my business going forward because, again, I'm saving my cash reserves, my rent payments in Bitcoin terms for those properties at this point. So I'm already demonetizing the fiat value of those properties. Now, at some point, I might get sick of it and be like, I'm done. I don't want to deal with, renters anymore, or whatever the case is. But, I have no desire at this time to sell those buildings and just get out of it and turn that money into Bitcoin. I think the future is much brighter if I stay in business and I provide value to people that are willing to provide me value in return. So.
It's amazing. By the way, we mentioned Jeff Booth before once or twice. There's I made an episode with Jeff Booth for people that don't know him or are curious about him. He is one of the Bitcoin priests that I'm like, you have to at least watch one video of him. So if you have time after this podcast, watch the Jeff Booth one if you haven't done already. Just wanted to get this message out. I'm curious how I'm always talking about how Bitcoin changes the view on other stuff, but I'm curious, how did you owning apartments and you being in the property market change your view on Bitcoin, that you see might be a little different to my view or to views of other Bitcoiners?
Well, I guess I'm in a unique position in the property management field. I've been doing this now for 26 years. I'm a little older than you are. I'll be 48 this year. And I have been in the last 17 years, I've been in the affordable housing industry. And prior to that, I was in the market rate housing industry. And, I think coming to the affordable housing side of things, changed, at least at the company that I came to. I was able to kind of change my view from trying to figure out how to increase the rents as much as possible to maximize the return to the investors of the properties in the market rate world, to really the rents being out of my control in the affordable housing industry. And they're kind of set by the government agencies that help to pay the rent for people. And specifically, I'm in the project-based Section 8 housing world currently. And so, the government basically does studies to determine what the market rate rents should be for all of our properties at this time, and kind of says, this is what you get to charge people for your rent. It's still high, and it still wasn't doing enough to, I didn't see enough of my residents being able to get good jobs and get out on their own and get into the market rate world. And so that always kind of stuck in the back of my head, that we need to figure out some way to help more people, not just by giving them subsidies or reduced rent necessarily, but by encouraging them to work and to be able to pay their own rent, or to save some money. And Bitcoin, once I started digging into it, it just kind of seemed like a no-brainer to me that there's got to be a way I can convince my residents to either start saving in Bitcoin, so that they can get out of the positions that they're in, or like I came up with, this incentive structure idea to help make their rent even more affordable, which hopefully will help allow them to, better save some more money and, buy a house at some point in time as how home values come down, or whatever the case is. So
amazing. This brings me also to,
I think that.
This also brings me to a topic which I did not have on the radar today, but it's interesting to go in, because you said there, and it's also in Austria, there's like a lot of different places where the government sets a limit for the price, or sets the price completely. And there's a lot of those ideas which are definitely not a free market idea. And I had a lot of people on that said, like, Bitcoin enforces kind of a free market. It's like it forces governments to have a free market. How do you see the whole topic with free market Bitcoin, free market on a Bitcoin standard? Because also, like, people say, oh, capitalism is so bad, but we are not living in a capitalism if the capital is controlled by a central bank. For me, it's kind of it's not possible to live in a capitalist society if the capital is controlled by a centralized organization. It's like the first thing, not checking the box. How do you see the future with free market and Bitcoin and like the Bitcoin standard?
Yeah, I think it looks a lot different than it looks right now. I do have my concerns with the consolidation of Bitcoin, lots of Bitcoin into the hands of a few. And I could see us going down a path that is similar to the one that we've been going with in the fiat world. And again, that's concerning to me. I really think that we need to have Bitcoin in the hands of as many people as possible. And, my hope is that we will get there. My desire is that we will get there. I just certainly am a bit concerned about that. And what does that look like, right? Michael Seyr with his 20,000 Bitcoin or whatever that number happens to be, he's set to be potentially the wealthiest person on the planet if Bitcoin does what we all believe it's going to do. And he has to do some good with that. If he's just sitting on it and then becomes the bank that everybody has to go to, or the person that everybody, that owns all the property across the US or wherever, I'm not sure that gets us out of the systems that we're in.
I just want to quickly jump in here because I also see that as a danger. But really important to note here, I only see it as a medium-term danger, because long-term we have a proof-of-work system where everybody has to work for that money. Like even the one that has a lot of money cannot make more money with just that money. He can invest in business and stuff like that, but then he's a clever businessman, and then he would have accumulated more money anyways. And when he invests in bad business, he will lose his Bitcoin stack, and the Bitcoin stack will get smaller and smaller. So that's the really big difference, because if in the fiat world, if you have a lot of money, banks will beg you to give you credit, which you can then reinvest and stuff like that. And basically a lot of fiat money will make you more fiat money, as proof of stake is. Like if you have a lot of Ethereum, you can have more Ethereum because you can stake it and stuff like that. That's completely centralization mindset, and that is fiat mindset. And Bitcoin is the only thing, and I agree with the medium term thing, but I don't agree on the long term view, because everybody, even Michael Seyr, and he does a lot of hard work for that, and he takes a lot of risk on for that also. It's the proof of work and the risk is needed to get to Bitcoin. And being early is an advantage, but it's only an advantage till you fail. And also those people will probably die at some point. There's a lot of like the redistribution of Bitcoin is natural. And I actually never covered that topic in my podcast. I just discovered in my head, and you're my 91st podcast guest. I'm coming closer to the 100. And this is something I wrote sometimes in early my Twitter career, where this was one of my first 3-4 really good performing tweets. And this is what a lot of people don't understand when they come in Bitcoin. They're like, oh, there's this big hodlers and they have so much money, we can never catch up. Yes, medium term, they have a lot of power. But the longer down the road, and we are switching a system. Basically, it's the same thing on the internet. Like people that invested a lot in Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, and everything, they are on top. Like they make so much money, they never have to work again by just investing early in some things. That's switching in the system is always makes a few really rich. And we have to look at the broader scale. But sorry, I did not want to interrupt you. I just was like, I have to.
No, you're. That's a very good point, and I hope I wasn't coming across as a Michael Seyr hater, or like he's an evil guy, because I have mad respect for the guy, and I think he is doing a lot for the space, and a lot. He's worked his butt off. He is a super smart guy from everything I've heard. I've never, met him in person, maybe someday. But you are absolutely right in the redistribution part of it as well. That's going to happen. No doubt in my mind. People that are, doing things for the wrong reasons are going to, find themselves wrecked. People that are doing things for short-term gain are, that goes against everything the Bitcoin world kind of stands for, right? And so I do believe that in the end, that does get redistributed. And eventually we end up with, and I'm sure there's somebody out there that is a math genius or that knows that there's some theorem out there that, shows how things will distribute over time. I guess I kind of look at it like, what is it? Energy and the second law of thermodynamics, where I think that's where everything will equally distribute over time. All the heat will kind of dissipate out of the universe over time or something like that. Bitcoin will be follow that path, I think. And it will get harder and harder to accumulate and keep or maintain a stack that is larger than anybody else's going forward. That's eons away probably. But over time, I do believe that happens. So, I mean, it's almost like this thing is a law of physics or is a, it should have its own law. And I know there's somebody out there in Twitter land or X land that says it's a power law or something like that. And there's maybe some valid points there, but again, over time, I think it acts more where it just dissipates and becomes more evenly spread across the entire population. So
100%. And by the way, for people that want to check out the Power Law, I also have an episode with Giovanni from the guy.
Did you? Okay. Yeah, all right.
It's my longest podcast ever. And I don't know if this theory, I did not understand the power law itself 100%. And for me, it's always interesting and funny how people come up with different models and put it on Bitcoin and then they break again. Maybe it's the one model that does not break. Let's see. I don't want to judge it because I clearly did not do enough research to do that, even though I had the guy on. I did already 10, 15, 20 hours of research really deep in the topic, just on the topic of power law. But if you really want to judge something, you really have to do the deep research. And I encourage people to just check it out. It was even one of my most watched episodes. I think in the top 6-7 episodes or something like that. So people definitely resonate with that, and people definitely find it interesting. But I'm like, it's something. It's another way to explain Bitcoin to another one, and this power law and the Giovanni definitely orange pilled someone else, and it brings you another group of Bitcoiners in, and that's the goal, right? So he does nothing.
Absolutely.
Yep. And the last thing I want to get into before we get to the end routine, you have in your Twitter bio or X bio the sentence, "Bitcoin reminds you of the Highlander." How do you mean that?
Somebody actually just commented on my profile something about having just watched the Highlander for their first time. So I don't, just in the fact that there can be only one. I think Bitcoin is going to prove to humanity that there is only one way to communicate value amongst ourselves. And I think that is going to be based on Bitcoin, at least at this point in time. Who's to say that there's not another discovery somewhere down the road in a couple hundred years or a couple thousand years that ends up being even better than Bitcoin? I have no idea what the future is going to look like, or be for sure. But yeah, that's that's where I was going with that. Bitcoin will be the only way to communicate value, other than, hey, I'll watch your kid for the night, you watch my kid, or I'll wash your car, you wash my car next week, or, I'll shovel your sidewalk while you're gone on vacation this week, you shovel mine next week, kind of a thing. The old barter system. But other than that, I do believe Bitcoin is just, it's slowly taking over everything, and it will be the only one.
Definitely, I'm 100% agreeing with that. Obviously, with my podcast. We're coming to the end routine of the podcast, where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest, kind of this blockchain kind of thing, where the guests are connected to each other without even being really connected to each other. And the question for you is, what's your take on ordinals and inscriptions?
Look, I'm not into it. I have a feeling some of that is probably still PTSD from the whole NFT craze from the 2020, my 2020 kind of entry into Bitcoin. I do think anything that drives usage and awareness to Bitcoin is a benefit to Bitcoin. In the long run, I don't think that it's going to be a worthwhile. I think we look back on it and go, that was kind of crazy how that popped off like that. And I'm glad that, we don't have a bunch of ordinals running around on the Bitcoin blockchain. That I'll leave it at that. I don't really know enough about it to make any more of a comment other than what I've said. So.
Really, really cool. Perfect. Then I enjoyed our speak today. Really, really cool that you joined me today. Is there anything you want to add today? Where can people reach out to you? What do you want to say in the end?
I guess on X for now, I still have my profile there. I am also on Nostr. You can just search my name. I'm out there on LinkedIn, all kind of this normal social media, or the mainstream social media, so to speak. At some point, that'll probably disappear a little bit over time, but I would reach out in any of those ways.
Really cool. Thank you for being on, Jason.
Yeah, thank you, Robin. I appreciate it.